Welcome, gentlemen, to today's lecture on Rome and how did we get here. And I start with this image of the Roman Colosseum, a staple of Roman society. And it would be unfair to say that the Romans just arrive on Earth without any sort of forbearing, any sort of warning. Okay, there are a lot of things that happened before, so let's get started. First, you see the beautiful image of the Roman Colosseum, which is a staple of their society. We'll revisit that in 2 more lectures for this unit. First, we begin with the Old Stone Age, and this dates back 800,000 years, also known as the Paleolithic Age, where human beings were hunter-gatherers. Since there are few reliable food sources, we had what were known as nomadic people, and these people were hunter and gatherers, and they moved around constantly for food. And you can see the paintings in the cave wall here of what some of the things they might have hunted. This is buffalo, and you see some deer and cow that existed because humans had to constantly wander. But that lifestyle isn't really sustainable, and so we have a time period called the Neolithic Revolution, where it is virtually the agricultural revolution from 10,000 BC to 7,000 BC, and we're going to have a change in food production because the exhausting component of moving constantly to find food had to change, and so therefore humans did what's called domesticate plants and animals, or grow them for human purposes and breed them for human purposes. So now you have house dogs, you have hunting dogs, and you have plants that you can use to plant and they can grow, and you can use them and they can regrow, you can replant them. All of this happened because of people able to steadily get agricultural gifts during the Neolithic Revolution. You're going to have food lead to the development of villages. And the first village or community that we know of is Jericho, or the most prominent one at least is Jericho from 8,000 to 7,000 BC. One thing I want you to quickly notice is that all of our first civilizations are going to develop around rivers. And why? Mostly because rivers are going to provide for the food that all of the societies need. Here in the Far East, you have Huang He and Yangtze Valley. You have the Indus River Valley in Southwest Asia, and then you have the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East region, and now you have the Nile River as well. Crucial to know that all civilizations have several traits. This is the most important. The fact that they can all grow by having and maintaining a surplus of food is critical. They all practice some form of religion, whether it's monotheistic or polytheistic. Monotheistic simply means they believe in one God. Polytheistic means they believe in many gods. Now notice how God uppercase and gods lowercase here. They all have some form of writing, technology, a bureaucracy, or higher order of government, social structure of classes of people, and then the development of cities. Mesopotamians were the first people in the region. So Mesopotamia is the region. Remember the 5 themes of geography is the region. And within them, they're going to have the different people groups. So don't think of they're all different. Okay, Mesopotamia is going to be dominated by 2 rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The Tigris is right there, and the Euphrates. This region is modern-day Iraq and Syria. The 2 rivers are going to provide rich soil in an area with low rainfall by flooding annually. The problem was that their flooding was unpredictable, and because it was unpredictable, the flooding is going to be happening at a very, very vicious pace, and it's going to lead to a lot of destruction. So although they get the great farmland, Mesopotamia is going to get a whole lot of destruction. Geographically also, this area is like wide open, and so it's good in the fact that because there's few barriers, they're going to have easy access to trade, and they have lots of interactions with other societies. But on the negative, you're going to see that they're going to be open to attack from a lot of different people groups. And so therefore, the turnover of Mesopotamia is going to be very, very rapid. I'm going to fly through these. You got the Sumerians, the first people in the area, who are famous for giving us cuneiform, which is described on this clay tablet here called, known as, which means wedge shape. It's the oldest translated language. The Sumerians are going to be followed by the Akkadians, who give us the first professional army. The Akkadians are then going to transition over to the Babylonians, led by their famous king Hammurabi, who established the law code of Hammurabi. It's 282 laws that were basically retaliatory. You need to know this. This was retaliatory, and they're going to affect further law systems. So this is where you hear the eye for an eye comes from his law code. If you look at this is the actual law code of Hammurabi right here. You can't tell, but this is actually 8 feet tall. And if you want to go visit it, you got to hop on board, go over the pond, and go to the Louvre Museum in Paris. And it's 8 feet tall, and it's basically Hammurabi right here receiving the law from the god to summon his people. So this is actually meant, this is physically put there for those who couldn't read the actual laws, and they could know that they were still held to those same standards. Although Mesopotamia is going to be really polytheistic, they are going to practice Zoroastrianism, which is a brief form of monotheism, where it exposes humans that they must choose between good or evil, and it allows them to have free will. But generally, when we think of Mesopotamians, they're polytheistic people, and their gods represent natural forces. This might be the most pessimistic region we see all year. Their gods carry on human forms and human flaws, and they even have a creation story and a flood story, as you see in other religions. But they're very pessimistic, and how pessimistic can be depicted by the Epic of Gilgamesh, which tells a story that is very long. But here's the general idea of the story: that the days of man are numbered. And it's very pessimistic, but that's what life is like in Mesopotamia, because of the constant flooding that led to much destruction. And even though it brought them many gifts in terms of rich soil, they still didn't value it. The two most prominent Mesopotamian society are the Assyrians, known for rummaging and pillaging and creating this mighty large empire that practiced terror tactics and killed people and would bury thousands of them alive. The Assyrians, and the Persians, who are just as vicious as the Assyrians, but they were a little more tolerant in allowing people to keep their customs whenever they captured them. Okay, their famous kings are going to be Cyrus the Great and Darius, which you may know from the war with Greece. They're going to be from their war with Greece is where you're really going to see them impacted in 300, Persia, all that. Their architecture is going to be depicted by ziggurats, with the famous ziggurat being the Tower of Babel, that's from the Bible. And because their geography was very difficult, they had to build walls. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to defend themselves. And you see the walls of the city laid out. The last group that's going to be really significant to the Mesopotamian region is the Hebrews, and they're going to really solidify monotheism through the practice of Judaism. Okay, Judaism is going to be a forefront, and this is critical. Judaism is going to be a forefront to Christianity. All right. Then you got the Egyptians, who loved the benefits of living on the Nile River. The flooding. One thing that you need to know the difference is the flooding was predictable, so the Egyptians were always prepared for it, and they got lots of goodness from the Nile River. Here's a quick shot and image of the Nile. Egyptian geography, unlike Mesopotamian geography, was very protected through deserts, through seas, and other things like that. So the Egyptians had more stability, and therefore they're going to have a longer lasting kingdom than all the turnover in Mesopotamia. Egypt is characterized by 3 periods: upper, middle, and lower kingdom. And prior to that, Egypt used to be divided into an upper Egypt and a lower Egypt. And King Menes in 3100 BC is going to unite them. and thus beginning the Old Kingdom, which is known for its great building period with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx. The Sphinx is the body of a pharaoh, and the head of a pharaoh, and the body of a lion. The Old Kingdom is going to be followed by the Middle Kingdom, which is going to be characterized by this co-regency period with 2 pharaohs ruling, and the image of the pharaoh being viewed as kingship. He's now the king of his people. And then the New Kingdom is going to be characterized by slavery and massive building projects and a short flirt with monotheism, but we're not going to see that last very long. The most famous Egyptian king is going to be King Tut, and King Tut is going to be famous because he essentially, when his tomb was discovered many years after he died, and one of the things they found was that the Egyptians stuffed all kinds of things into their leaders' tombs. And because they did, you're going to see him return Egypt to polytheism. But he's more famous for something that happened after he was dead than he did whenever he was alive. The Egyptian religion is going to have many gods, and they really believed that the gods help guided you into the next life. And therefore, they practice what came to be known as mummification. The Egyptians had a strong belief in the afterlife. They had a belief in the Ka. The Ka, the Egyptians felt, was the second of your 2 bodies. They felt like you had the physical body, and then you had the Ka, or the spiritual body. And when your spiritual body died, or when your physical body died, your spiritual body lived on in the form of the Ka and helped you to get through this massive process of getting successfully to the afterlife, which thus solidified their belief in mummification. What else helped you was something known as the Book of the Dead, which was basically the cheat sheet to get into the afterlife. It had all the chants you needed, all the songs, everything you needed to successfully make it in. What's interesting about ancient Egypt is that we had no idea. We had no idea about the ancient Egyptians until we discovered the Rosetta Stone. In 1799, French archaeologists discovered near the city of Rosetta this tablet here. Okay, I know it's small, but it's a lot bigger in person. And basically, it had 3 different languages on it. It had a form of Greek. It had hieroglyphics, which is the Egyptian writing, and it had linear A. And through this, they were able to depict and decode all that hieroglyphics meant. Because a lot of things that people don't realize about the Egyptians is that we had no idea what they did. No one really studied Egypt until 1799. And no one studied it at great length because we didn't really know what all their business records and what all their writings spoke. So the discovery of Rosetta Stone being super, super important to the study of Egyptology or Egyptian history. And to put 2 and 2 together, the language learning software Rosetta Stone helps you to translate in the same way that the actual Rosetta Stone helped historians translate what in the heck was happening in Egypt. Tune in to part 2 for the Aegean world.